Greetings, greetings, greetings. Honor and respect, honor and respect, honor and respect. It is another edition of Voodoo Hoodoo 101, provided by Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Sponsored by, supported by, empowered by NOIVD, New Orleans International Voodoo Day. Continue to visit us at www.vodouday.org. Again, www.voodooday.org for more updates and more coming information about our third annual International New Orleans Voodoo Day on May 9th, Saturday, May 9th, our symposium, and Sunday, May 10th, our actual day of procession and celebration and events 2026. We certainly do appreciate you. And I'm grateful for your participation and your attendance here for this live daily podcast at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Greetings, Lydia Martin. We certainly appreciate you. Nina Lloyd, we certainly appreciate your continued support and participation. Build with Brother Saheed. Thank you so much, Saheed Ali, for your support and participation. Imani Sankofa, greetings and salutations to you and to yours. Latrell, Lateria Danielle, greetings and salutations to you and yours. Daniel Neal, greetings. Thank you so much for your continued love and support. And to our supporting co-host, Elder Reggie, we certainly appreciate you, another representative of International New Orleans Voodoo Day, and certainly an active participant in our nightly podcast. Greetings to you, Shahid Ali. Thank you for joining us again. And welcome and come on in, Sister Toni Val Martinez, Queen Mother. Greetings and salutations. How are you tonight?
I am good. Greetings and salutations. Hello, everyone out there listening. So glad you could join us. I had a busy day.
Mm.
Everybody texting me, asking me if I'm kin to the Pope.
I don't want that.
Well, he's got that Martinez bloodline.
Yes, a lot of Martinez bloodline.
Oh my
Hmm.
I don't know. I
Mm.
don't care. My sister Tina Martinez, since she took the DNA 23andMe and Ancestry, she said she was going to check them out a little more closer. Since his family tree is everywhere, going further back as Louisiana was keeping records
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward, it's easy to get the information on his current relatives. Um, it, between sinners and him being elected pope, it's brought a lot of focus on our little skeleton in the closet that we don't like to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Our African American, Afrocentric Black people who, over the years, for whatever reason, have decided to go over to the other side. They asked his brother, John, about his Creole heritage. And John said, yes, we aware of our whole Creole heritage, but we currently don't claim being black.
Mm.
I said, I don't care what you don't claim, your blood didn't claim. God didn't claim. You ain't had nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we currently don't claim black. I'm like, wow, we really got to heal from that, but we can't. It was racism that made our people go to the other side
Hmm.
after
Hmm.
seeing how the darker skinned blacks were treated with
Hmm.
all the Jim Crow and everything that our ancestors were faced with, the lynchings, the Klan, the white magnolias, all of this stuff going on. I really can't say I would have blamed them, really. I mean, I couldn't see me doing it
But it
because
certainly
I
would
like
have been a matter of survival. We certainly have that history, in the context of my family. And upon discovering, the diverse ethnicities that intersection, with my family, I began to ask that very question: Why would you know people mask as another race, mask as another ethnicity, particularly in the late 1700s, going into the 1800s, and carrying that into the 1900s? What were the conditions that would have created such activity? My family claimed, Aboriginal and indigenous, for generations, at least the course of my lifetime, until I, you know, dipped my foot into that DNA water, and discovered that we had, Western European and Irish in our background. And it's curious how we, keep bringing up the Irish. The Irish were certainly featured in the movie Sinners. But there are many correlations between so-called black people and so-called quote unquote Irish people, and sort of the treatment, of them as an ethnic group, you know, short of enslavement, mirrors um, some of the oppressive you know, Jim Crow, we've had to live underneath. So the elephant in the American room still remains to be race and
Mm-hmm.
ethnicity and origin. And of course, that, muddies the water of religion and spirituality, unless you take a more, you know, I would call it a traditional approach. I think my house honors a traditional approach in that we examine the individual and we examine the ethnic footprint of the individual. We don't assume we all, are Yoruba, or we are all Hausa, or we are all Ewe or Khan, or Ga, or any other ethnic uh, uh, delineation. We are certainly a mixture of. Something we used to hear a lot about were the white table ceremonies, the misas. You don't hear a lot of talk about misas, in the last, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. For those who are unfamiliar with the white table ceremony or the misa, it's really a ceremony, an active ceremony, and people in the room, anyone in the room, not just practitioners, can be possessed by the spirit of someone who's transitioned and passed on. And often in these misas, you would experience spirit, an ancestral spirit from many ethnic background and lineages. Certainly for me, I would experience this, you know, Middle Eastern, Arabic thing, and for years, I sort of tuned into it, tapped into it, connected with it, but really didn't understand its real root until 23andMe came along. And then I understood that my earliest ancestors, in terms of a timeline, were Southeast Asian. And so I would, have these spells. I call them Sufi spells, and I would, light my incense and open the windows and play Sufi music for 12 hours, 14 hours straight, nonstop, would just drive my neighbors crazy, I'm sure. And that high pitched wailing, you know, Middle Eastern music too. My spirit, seemed to really prefer that. But that ancestral work in divination really is important, as a foundation for any person operating in ATR, Aboriginal African religious spiritual systems, and I dare say indigenous spiritual systems globally. That ancestral footprint, that ancestral hedge, is our front line of defense. It's been proven now scientifically that ancestral memory survives in the blood, at least 11 generations. So we are all a walking archive, a walking library, a walking connection to history, to human history. And so operating in trance meditation and various forms of meditation and utilizing crystal and transcending timelines and dimensional spaces. It's just a whole universe of archive that we are yet to tap into, while we spend so much time, you know, quibbling over, tarot and horror movies and, pop cultural nuances, which demonstrate to be trending. This too shall pass, as my mama would say. And so we know, particularly those of us of a certain age, we have seen these things come and go seasonally, um, in terms of their interests and their, drive, particularly in social media spaces. And then there's that small group of committed souls who are truly on their soul journey of inner standing. And understanding helps us to, better understand ourselves, but also understand God, and subsequently understand the universe that we all live and operate in.
Well said, Divine. Welcome. How you doing? How you doing, Sister Toni and guests?
Hey,
Yeah, I was just so happy to watch this the vignette of the photos from the 2025 National or International Voodoo Day. Oh man, it's nice work. It is real nice. For those who was able to be there, you seen it up close and personal. And those who was not, just watch some of the videos. You could pick up the vibes. The pictures really spots on. And I'm glad you posted that up, Divine. I really am.
Yeah, it was timely. We certainly thank Sky and all of her timeless labor in assisting us with our digital content and media. And so Sky gathered that together, I don't know, in the last 2 or 3 days. And she sent it up for approval by way of, email.
Mm-hmm.
And as she has stipulated, in prior conversations, based on response, 24 hours, 48 hours, we would really begin to start releasing these pieces. And so I first released it last night, and then she uploaded it to all of our national, international Voodoo Day social media platforms throughout the day. And so it will now be a contributing a
Mm-hmm.
component to either the opening or the closing of the show until we get our next trailer from our production team, the Horn
Mm-hmm.
Brothers, and we should be getting that shortly.
Thanks for
okay.
yeah.
But it's professional. It really shows the diversity of our group and
Mm-hmm.
the diversity of voodoo practice within the group. Now, if we
Mm-hmm.
haven't made it clear, there is no one type of voodoo. Voodoo, as a fond word, as an airway word, means spirit or nature, and
Mm-hmm.
so nature is all encompassing on so many levels. Uh, we could talk about the sky, we could talk about the earth, we could talk about chemistry, DNA, molecules, atoms. Nature is just so many things beyond earth, water, fire, and air. And it is intra dimensional. Even within water, we have water, we have ice, we have sleet, we have hail. Even within earth, we have sand, we have gravel, we have rock. So it's a multi-layered, multi-dimensional reality that we
Mm-hmm.
all live and exist in. But we choose within every moment of that walk what plane of reality we are connecting, we are tapping in. And some of us are just choosing to operate in a more, third, fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional space. Some of us are disconnecting, from the earth because we's tired. We's just tired, of the shenanigans of life. And so yeah, there's a lot of I call it time traveling. And
Mm-hmm.
time traveling shows up in a myriad of interdimensional ways. People who spend a lot of time in the past are time traveling. People who spend a lot of time in the future, are time traveling. But the active principle is the here and the now, the present. This present moment in time space is really all that we have right now in this moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so bringing in, those frames of information, those optics of information, from the past and the future into this moment is really, the mystery, and the excitement of living. And if you're not tapping in, man, what are you doing? Where are you?
Caught up.
distracted.
Yeah. And it's
I,
so much to be distracted about, to keep up with, that'll affect your daily life. You trying to make sure you're okay in your daily life with all the distractions.
mm-hmm.
And that's by design, right?
Yep,
So
that's
we've
how they
got to,
designed it.
yes. So we've got to continue to construct and deconstruct our realities to better mirror our best interest, to better mirror that which, those of us in this sacred space say that we believe, say that we operate in, say
Mm-hmm.
that we stand on. Um,
Mm-hmm. Divine, if it's
I
okay if
love
I
this.
piggyback off of what you just said to tapping in, and I'm opening this up to the listening audience. New Orleans, there's a resurgence in New Orleans. There's a resurgence in New Orleans voodoo. And if some of you guys could come down, visit, check things out, take tours or whatever, and just really get in tune with what's going on in New Orleans, I think it would do you some good. Because the team we putting together now, we are trying to put some solid foundation down around voodoo, New Orleans voodoo in particular. And maybe you could come on board and be a part of that and help us build for the future.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Ashe, Ashe.
Mm-hmm.
We
Ashe.
must begin to build, like a honeycomb within the space that we all occupy, but also within the collective space. And now that we, have this world wide web, we are indeed also sharing, this virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, we must continue to build. It certainly can begin here in this space, but it must transcend, you know, the verbiage of this reality, and then manifest in our daily demonstrations. You know, beginning with the smallest things, to like a honeycomb, to then expanding to much bigger things. We can sometimes get overwhelmed with just the thought of going up against the system, fighting the system, revolution, and then begin to really break down all the division of labor as it relates to the activities involved in that. And yeah, it's a program distraction. Um, we're designed. The program is designed to keep us distracted with paying the bills. Certainly, caring for your households and your family and your kids. And whatever dramas that come with that. You keeping your health up, and then monitoring the food, trusting and learning to read and examine labels. It's an overwhelming amount of information. And it's interesting how we think of, we carry these computers, these devices, and some of us multiple devices in our hands, every day. But then I think about my grandparents and my great grandparents and the ancestral generations before them, who could, memorize the Quran from front to back, memorize the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. Remember every family member's name, back, at least 3, 4, 5 generations. Remember where they were when it happened. you know, when the 9/11 happened, when the oldest, school shooting you can remember happened, and we're now flooded with so much more information than we were just 20 years ago. But, I question our ability to retain what's pertinent. I question our ability to retain what's most needed
Mm-hmm.
without
Man,
relying on, a device or an outside source. Some of the
Our brain is
ritual.
also a device now.
Mm-hmm.
And we store memories just like our devices do. And I think like when push come to shove, those memories come to the forefront. I know it does for me.
Mhm.
Because I'm constantly saying, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah. You know, it's like they say you never forget how to ride a bike.
Right.
Yes,
Even
Right.
if you
indeed.
haven't rode one in years, and your brain gonna make you remember how it go.
Mm-hmm. Sister Toni, just what you open up with bringing up the information like your last name and with the Pope.
Uh-huh.
This might be a reach on my part, but his grandparents was in New Orleans at the turn of the 20th century, and Marie Laveau died in 1881. But I'm trying to make a correlation. I'm pretty sure they was living in the Seventh Ward at the time she was living when they was young kids, because this is his grandmother that left New Orleans in 1912.
Well,
But
they got more data on her parents and her grandparents now. They done did the deep dive.
mm,
They done
okay.
did the deep dive going into the 1800s. Even I just posted in Black New Orleans then and now a picture of the church the grandparents got married in
Mm-hmm.
that got destroyed in a hurricane,
Mm-hmm.
destroyed the church. So they deep diving. They going all the way back to when, you know, the written record. They done did ship logs to see when his relative came from Haiti. They done
Wow.
found the ship
Ooh.
with his name on it. His name was Tom.
Mm-mm-mm.
Wow.
Wow.
Or they called him Tom. It was short for Tom. But they then went back and found the ship manifest.
Mm-hmm. This
So they
this
done
is so
went back a lot.
interesting at this time that we live, to have the first pope, which is an American pope, and then his lineage and his ties still have some anchors in New Orleans. That to me is there's a message in that for me.
And then I got it twice because I'm New Orleans and Chicago.
Okay now.
Yeah, I'm New Orleans and Chicago.
Okay now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And let's not
But
forget that hoodoo, that conjure, made its way up river
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
and redeposited itself between St.
Mm-hmm.
Louis and Chicago.
Right along with the jazz music. Yes.
Hmm.
Because I know my grandmother brought it from Mississippi
Mm-hmm.
with her to St. Louis and to Chicago.
Mm.
Divine Prince, I be up and I be on TikTok and Instagram for entertainment and trying to learn something because they do have some good stuff on there. And what I am seeing is a lot of people practicing hoodoo and voodoo from Memphis. And I was thinking where all them people came from.
Well, they've always been there. As I
We
just
just
said,
couldn't we just couldn't find them.
well, they've always been there. As I just said, that the hoodoo made its way up river,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of the you know central stops. Even we think of blues, and
Mm-hmm.
hoodoo blues and Memphis, blues. The footprint is there, but also is the footprint of the church there. And so that church footprint, is also equally present. And just the 3 years that I was there, post Hurricane Katrina, a lot of that was deeply underground still,
Yeah.
as late as 2000, 9, 8, 7, 2006. That was deeply underground still. Now it may be a tad bit more out now, again, owing a great deal of exposure to the internet. But Memphis is on the hoodoo map historically.
Yeah, they coming out. They coming out on TikTok. And I also see a resurgence of new people on there claiming to be from New Orleans doing hoodoo. I even seen a hoodoo book for beginners. That was the title of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hoodoo for beginners.
Yeah, well, we could do a whole, you know, series on the perpetration and the appropriation and the bastardization thereof. Okay,
That
but
made me go back to think about them series of books, computers for dummies,
mm-hmm,
plumbing for dummies. Soon as
mm-hmm.
I read that, it made me think of those books for dummies, the for dummies line. And sometime when I'm just want to be messy, as that's the way I'm gonna say it, I'll go in the comments in their lives and ask who you is, where you come from. I'm in New Orleans. I don't know you.
Yeah.
I'll
Oh
go in
yeah.
there and mess with them. I'll go in their live and mess with them.
Wow.
I like how the archaeologists and the social, you know, oriented students and the scholars will contact me and ask me, do I know, you know, so and so, you know, do I know these people? And
Yeah.
that's, you know, yeah, it's an active community. And people will say they hoodoo, they voodoo, they this, they that. You know, oh, I work in isolation, I work in secret, but you can't work without the community.
Right.
You can't operate in this separate from the community.
Oh, speaking of people who say they hoodoo, guess what I found out? I don't know if y'all know it, but it was news to me. Michael B. Jordan is a Babalawo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he says, yeah.
Yeah, so he says he's a Babalawo. And I was thinking maybe that's why everything you touch turned to gold.
Perhaps the timing, you know, is questionable, but perhaps. Okay. Some are
What you mean
suggesting
the
that, you know,
timing
the
is
timing,
questionable?
well, they're suggesting that it's, you know, it's an attempt to better or greater promote sinners.
No, he been that since Black Panther.
Yeah, but the promotion of it hasn't been as
Well,
prominent
most
as it
people,
is,
I
you know.
guess, they don't promote it like that. He was asked a question about his middle name,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Bakari, and he said something to the fact that was his initiate name.
Yes,
But I
indeed.
said that's very interesting. So now I'm trolling and looking for evidence. And looking for evidence.
Yeah, where's the footprint? Who were they 7 years ago? Who were they 17 years ago? Yeah.
Well, I'm
But
on
listen,
it. I'm looking.
well, you see,
But
find out what you can bring to us on Monday night.
I will. But our time is really up. We really overtime.
Okay.
And it's been so nice being here with you. And I'm going to turn it over to the Divine Prince to do our closing. And I'll see all of you on Monday.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Asheo, Asheo. And remember to continue to visit us at voodooday.org, www.vodouday.org for more information on our third annual New Orleans International Voodoo Day, May 9th, May 10th, 2026. We close the show by giving honor and recognition to Cousin Zaka, who we feast and celebrate on tomorrow night at the temple. And we look forward to being here with you again on Monday night at 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time for more revolutionary hoodoo, New Orleans voodoo secrets and recipes. Voodoo Hoodoo 101. All is a blessing. And whatever you do, respect the voodoo. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. Ashe.
Everything that everybody loves about New Orleans is because of Black people.
You're going to get that fit. You're going to get your hair done. You're going to get your nails done. And you're going to be with your crew. And we're going to be out here in these streets freely being gay. It is the way New Orleans allows you to step out and be yourself.
Bringing history and tradition and culture together.
Right? I love that I see everything that's beautiful in New Orleans, from our food. You go to a second line.
This journey has been one hell of a roller coaster.